Many places in the world are believed to be inhabited by spirits or unknown entities. These places are often far away from human settlements, deep in remote areas where few people dare to go. According to many stories, if a person enters these places, strange and sometimes terrifying things can happen. Today, we're talking about Skinwalker Ranch, one of the most mysterious and talked about paranormal locations in America. This ranch lies in a remote desert area in Utah, in the United States. For decades, it has gained a reputation as one of the most mysterious ranches in the country, surrounded by chilling stories about strange creatures, unexplained lights in the sky, and bizarre encounters that many people claim they cannot explain. In the early 1990s, the Terry Sherman family, made up of a father, a son, and 2 daughters, lived a simple life on a small farm in the rural region of Wichita Basin in Utah, United States. The farm was their only source of income, so every day the father and his son worked from early morning until sunset, taking care of the land and the animals. Over time, the son grew tired of the same routine. He often thought about expanding their work and owning a much larger ranch one day. He dreamed of something bigger, more land, more animals, and a future where their farm could grow into something truly successful. One day, news spread around the small community. Skinwalker Ranch was for sale. But people in the area didn't talk about it like a normal property. Instead, many locals whispered about it as the Haunted Ranch. The son was surprised when he heard that name. Curious, he asked about the price. What shocked him even more was how cheap it was. For a ranch with so much land, the price seemed unusually low. Excited, he told his father immediately. The idea of owning such a large ranch felt like a dream. The father had already heard the strange stories people told about the place, but he believed they were nothing more than rumors and local legends. They contacted the owners and said they wanted to see the ranch before making a decision. But strangely, the owners refused to go with them. Instead, they told them, "Go and see the place yourselves. If you like it, come back and buy it." When the family arrived for the first time, they immediately noticed something unusual. There were chains and heavy locks on many of the barn doors, far more than what you would normally expect on a farm. It almost looked as if the previous owners had been trying to keep something from getting in, or from getting out. The ranch itself was extremely isolated, far away from the village, surrounded by open land and silence. For the father and son, however, that seemed perfect. They had always wanted a quiet place with more space to work and expand their farming. The land was exactly what they had been looking for, and the price was incredibly low. So despite the strange rumors, they decided to buy the ranch. In the early days of their new life, the family of Terry Sherman had just moved into a ranch that many locals whispered about, Skinwalker Ranch. During the first days, everything seemed completely normal. The father and his son spent their time cleaning the land and organizing the barns, while the daughters helped their mother clean the house. The place itself was good, but it was messy and neglected, as if no one had properly taken care of it for a long time. On their first day, the entire family worked together to fix and clean the ranch. By the end of the day, they were tired but happy. Everyone in the family felt excited. "This place is huge," they said, "and it's so quiet, even quieter than we expected." But what they didn't know was that the quietness of the ranch was only the beginning of something far stranger. About a week later, in the middle of the night, the entire family suddenly woke up to the loud barking of the ranch dogs. The dogs were barking aggressively toward the darkness outside, as if they could see something the family couldn't. At first, the father thought it might just be wolves or some wild animal moving through the desert. When the sun finally rose the next morning, the father went to check on the dogs. They looked nervous and frightened, as if something had truly scared them during the night. Still, he ignored the incident and continued his work on the ranch, thinking it was nothing unusual. The day passed normally, and everything seemed fine. But when night fell again, the same thing happened. The dogs began barking loudly once more, staring into the darkness. This time, the father and his son decided to step outside and see what was making the dogs so terrified. They walked toward the barn where the dogs were barking and looked in the direction the animals were staring. The dogs were facing the livestock area. As the father and son looked closer, they suddenly saw something moving in the darkness. It was an animal that looked like a wolf, but it was far larger than any normal wolf. It was so big that it seemed impossible for it to be a regular wild animal. Slowly, the creature began walking toward the barn. It moved calmly, staring directly at them. The strangest part was that it didn't seem afraid of them at all. Even when the father shouted to scare it away, the animal didn't move. In a quick motion, the father grabbed his rifle and fired at the creature. The gunshot echoed across the ranch, waking the entire family. But what happened next was even more shocking. Instead of running away or collapsing like a normal animal would, the creature simply stood there for a few seconds, as if nothing had happened. Then, without a sound, it slowly turned and disappeared into the darkness between the trees. After that night, things on the ranch began to change. Some of the livestock started disappearing without any trace. Other nights, the family would find strange footprints in the dirt around the property. The tracks didn't look like any normal animal prints they recognized. Even stranger, the footprints would suddenly stop in the middle of the ground, as if whatever had made them had simply vanished into the air. After that night, things on the ranch began to grow even stranger around Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. At first, the family tried to convince themselves that it was just a wild animal roaming through the land. But the strange events didn't stop. A few days later, one of the daughters woke up in the middle of the night after hearing a strange noise outside the house. At first, she thought it was just the wind moving through the trees. But then she heard something else. Footsteps. Slow, heavy footsteps moving across the ground outside the house. She looked through the window, trying to see what was out there in the darkness. For a moment, she saw nothing. Then suddenly, she noticed a tall shadow standing near the fence of the ranch. The figure wasn't moving. It was just standing there, watching the house. Terrified, she woke the rest of the family. When the father and his son rushed outside with flashlights, the figure was gone. There was nothing there. But the next morning, when they checked the ground near the fence, they found something disturbing. Large footprints in the dirt. But they didn't look like human footprints, and they didn't look like any animal they had ever seen. Even stranger, the tracks stopped suddenly in the middle of the field, as if whatever made them had simply disappeared. Over the following weeks, the strange activity became even more intense. Sometimes, late at night, the family would see strange lights moving slowly across the sky above the ranch. Not airplanes, not helicopters. The lights would move silently, sometimes stopping in the air before suddenly shooting off into the darkness. Other nights they heard strange sounds coming from the direction of the barns. Metal doors shaking, animals panicking. And once, the son swore he saw something moving between the trees near the edge of the property. A tall, dark figure, moving quickly before disappearing behind the shadows. After months of these terrifying experiences, the family began to believe that the stories told by the locals were not just rumors. Something was wrong with the land. Eventually, the stress and fear became too much. The family made the difficult decision to leave the ranch, but the strange stories about Skinwalker Ranch didn't end with them. Over the years, many other people who visited the ranch claimed to experience similar things. Unexplained lights in the sky, strange creatures seen in the distance, and the feeling that something unseen was always watching from the darkness. Even today, the ranch remains one of the most mysterious places in America, and no one truly knows what happens there after the sun goes down.